Welcome to Voices Beyond the Spectrum. Real stories, brave voices, radiant perspectives. This is the podcast for parents and caregivers of autistic and neurodivergent children and teens. I'm your host, and each week we hold space for honest conversations, shared struggles, and hard-won victories from those who truly live it. You're not alone. Your story matters, and it starts here. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Voices Beyond the Spectrum Resource Hub Edition. I'm your host, Karla Chinen, and I'm truly grateful you are joining us today. This conversation is one that many families need, especially those beginning to think about long-term planning, future care, and decision-making supports, and what adulthood can look like for our loved ones with disabilities. Today, we are joined by two remarkable leaders from the Proxy Parent Foundation, an organization that has supported families for more than 40 years. First, we have Carol Larkin, the Director of Client Relationships. Carol is often the first person families connect with when they begin the journey. She has walked beside countless families and caregivers, helping them navigate decisions that can feel intimidating or emotional, always with clarity and compassion and deep understanding. And also with us is Carmen Bowen, the Executive Director of Proxy Parent Foundation. Carmen stepped into her leadership role in April of 2025, bringing with her strong background of strategic planning and community engagement, including her time as Assistant Vice President for Alumni Relations in Saybrook University. At Proxy, she guides the organization's long-term vision and ensures families continue receiving support they need for years to come. Carol, Carmen, it's truly an honor to have you both here today. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to begin by letting our listeners get to know more of you personally. Carol, let's start with you. Can you introduce yourself and share your role as Director of Clients Relations?
Absolutely, Karla. Thank you so much for having us. As Karla said, my name is Carol Larkin. I am the Director of Client Relations at Proxy Parent Foundation. I've been with the company about 4 years now, and I primarily work in outreach. So I'm out in the community at events or doing presentations, and I'm also the first point of contact for families looking to get more information or once they are ready to enroll. So I walk them through the entire enrollment process. Additionally, I myself am also a mama to someone on the spectrum, and that's how I connected with Karla. And so I'm just so glad that we could team up and provide resources to this community.
Thank you very much. And how did you first become involved with this work, and what really inspired you to commit and supporting families through the more of the long-term planning?
Sure. So how I came into this role is I'm sure how a lot of parents feel once they first get that diagnosis for their child. I was in a position that the work was great. I mean, I loved my job, but my son needed me at home. He needed someone to host early intervention inside the house, to drive him to speech, OT, etc. And so I needed something with a lot more flexibility and understanding. And that's how I came into this role specifically. It was truly serendipitous to come into this organization and work with parents who are in the same life journey, but at such a different point. And so it's really brought perspective into my life, both as a professional and as a mother.
Thank you very much. And now shifting over to leadership. Carmen, can you introduce yourself and share what led you to join Proxy Parent Foundation as the Executive Director?
Yes. First of all, thank you so much for having Carol and I do this. This is a great honor, and we look forward to imparting our information because it's so needed. So I have been around a long time in leadership and, strategic planning and so forth. And so one of my colleagues on a board that I serve on is on the board of Proxy Parent Foundation. And she recommended me because she knew I was looking for a new position. I looked into it and I'd never heard of special need trusts. And so I knew that based upon what the scope of the job was and the direction that Proxy wanted to go into, that I was equipped and positioned to do that. And so in April, I started with Proxy, and my job is, policy creation and implementation. As Carol mentioned, she gets the ball rolling and then she passes the baton to me, and I help get the contracts and so forth together, execute contracts, work alongside Carol with outreach, and then, work together with companies to do partnerships and memorandums of understanding to really just set the tone of the organization, but most importantly, to ensure that we are efficient and run compliantly. So this has been an honor to be a part of this, and I'm learning so much and meeting such great families. So I'm glad that this came my way because I do see the need, and I'm really excited about sharing it.
Thank you. And we're excited to have you here. It's always a pleasure to provide amazing resources and organizations to our families and to let them know what's out there. Because I know it's a big fear for most of our families that have children that have a disability and the what ifs of what's going to happen next. So it's amazing to be able to have you guys here. Now that we've gotten to know you both a little bit better, I want to transition into the understanding of the organization as a whole. Because for many families listening, this may be their very first introduction to the Proxy Parent Foundation. So, Carol, can you walk us through what Proxy Parent Foundation is and what services you provide?
Yes. So let me start just very high level. So we are a nonprofit organization. We were started by parents who had children with severe mental illness. And so when the creation of the tool of special needs trust came about, they looked at that and thought that that was great progress for our disabled children. And it's financial management in a sense, but they wanted to go beyond that and answer the question, who's also going to care for my loved one once I've passed? So that's when they came together and created Proxy Parent Foundation. So as an organization, we help families set up special needs trusts, which we then as an organization administer. So that's the financial component of it. But the heart and soul of our organization is our personal support services. So it's hiring someone in the local community who can step into the shoes of the parent and really be on the ground helping to look after that loved one. So in a nutshell, that's essentially what we do. It really is like becoming a parent, a proxy parent for the person. Really, the range of services is everything from driving someone to medical appointments, helping them with their annual research, even just spending quality time together. I know we have some families who have set up such beautiful traditions with their families, such as I know one of my favorite examples is a beneficiary whose parents used to take them to the opera every year. And so when they passed, they tasked that to our personal support specialist to say, hey, once a year, please go to the opera together. He loves it. It's part of his quality of life, etc. And so we get to step in and continue and maintain those routines and comforts for the beneficiary so that they can stay comfortable for the rest of their life as well.
That's amazing. I've seen a lot of need for all that. And it is a scary thought for every parent to just say, oh my gosh, my kid is so used to, or my adult now is so used to going, let's say, to a baseball game or going to a basketball game with me, or just, let's say, even something more simple and needed, like going to get certain appointments done at a certain time of the year. And to have that peace of mind that that's going to be taken care of, even if you're not there, I mean, that's extremely priceless. So sometimes I know there's topics like trust, conservatorship, and long-term planning that can feel a little bit overwhelming for our families. So let's make it simple. In everyday language, how would you explain the purpose of the program and why Proxy Foundation exists?
So the purpose of the program on the finance side of it, the special needs trust itself, a
Mhm.
special needs trust was created to protect a beneficiary's assets. So it gives you the ability to leave money behind to your loved one without disqualifying them from SSI or Medi-Cal, which, as we know, are such important benefits for this community. We know that that number is $2,000. They're not allowed to have more than that at a time. And I always love this little fun fact that I learned. That is a Nixon era number. That means when Nixon was president, they came up with this figure, $2,000. At the time, it was calculated to have been able to last someone 6 months. It could pay for rent and food for 6 months. Now in 2025, that is certainly not the case.
No.
So imagine leaving $2,001 to your loved one and then they get disqualified from their benefits. And as we know, there are also just even waiting lists to get enrolled into these benefits nowadays. So it's really a point of planning for families to and it's another way to take care of your loved one's financial future, whether you are of modest means or incredible means. It's a way to protect your loved one's benefits. And so that's the special needs trust side of things. And then, of course, the other side of it is having peace of mind that a trained professional is going to be there as a safety net for your loved one. So, whether you have a large extended family or not, this is just a great option. Sometimes, I know we lean on siblings a lot in families, but if a sibling has a 9 to 5 job, who's going to take Johnny to a doctor's appointment potentially during the day? So it's just a great added support if the family wants to opt into that.
That's also a fear. How do we put so much possible responsibility on those siblings? Or how can we find a way where that sibling is part of that other sibling with a disability's life, but without stopping them from creating their own life? So having that option can really open up a lot of different avenues for that sibling. And to the parents, to help the parents understand a little bit better whether these services apply to their situation, what types of families or individuals qualify for your supports?
I'd be happy to tackle that one. So using that word trust, a lot of people feel like, and it's just a misconception, that trust is for rich people. And that is not what this is designed for. As Carol explained, during the Nixon era, this is when this was put together, or they were using that the monies, but when the special needs trust was put together, it was designed for people that needed special benefits like Medi-Cal or Medicaid or Social Security, different HUD, Section 8, whatever. There's a plethora of benefits, but most of those are need-based. And usually that magic number is 2,000. And so for some of those organizations is less, if you can believe that. And so this legislation came about so that people that needed those could safeguard those benefits. And if you did come across like a settlement, or, because a settlement could be, you got hurt at work or an accident, something like that, or you had a car accident and a settlement came from that. But also at your job, or some insurance, like, or your grandma, divvied out the monies to all of her grandkids and you were one of the recipients. I mean, there's just so many ways you can come into money. So you don't have to be rich. It can come your way. Mm-hmm. But as Carol said, if you make over 2,000, now keep in mind, you might have 1,500 and someone give you 501, you're, but, and then, someone says, well, if I got $1 million, then I wouldn't worry. But if you think about the value of those benefits, like Medi-Cal, a lot of people, if you look at what you owe the state after you've used those things, it could be in the millions of dollars, depending on what your illness is, your condition. And so if someone even gave you $2 million, imagine how quickly it would go just to take care of your medical bills. But having a special needs trust allows someone that has a special need to keep those valuable benefits but also be able to receive blessings or gifts that come your way, and you don't have to, be disqualified. And the thing is, being disqualified for any of those benefits, like a Social Security or anything like that, if you lose it, it's so hard to get it back. Like if you look at the housing, this Section 8, people are on those lists for 10 years. So, this is why it's so important. So it's not just for the rich. If you have a special need, and there is no special needs list, it's so many things, right? So, but if you need it, then this is a way of safeguarding those, but also it gives you that extra added resource to do other things in life that you would otherwise not be able to do it if you had not received it or been blessed with it. So hopefully that kind of construes as to what this is all about, so people understand you too qualify, or you too could be in need of this.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. And that's a scary fact. Like, imagine setting things up to a certain degree, but no special needs trust, and you think your adult is set, and then, grandma gave an inheritance, and therefore your adult is disqualified and left with no safeguard. So thank you very much, Carmen, for explaining that. And one of the biggest questions families have is, where do I start? Where do I even start? So, Carol, can you help a parent or caregiver understand the beginning process with Proxy Parent Foundation?
Absolutely. So, as a nonprofit, we welcome everyone to call us to discuss your situation. So, really, if you're wanting to just get a basis of what special needs trusts are, we'll go over all of the various options with you. We're here first and foremost for education as well to the community. But really, looking where to start is I'd say visit a handful of pooled trust websites, see what you kind of gather from there. They are nonprofits, so they have a lot of education pieces. Us as well. And that should help give you a basis knowledge before you move on to consider a private option if you decide to go that route. In terms of, because, to recommend a book that might, it would be it would be kind of legally, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's hard to digest. I mean, even coming into this position, it took me a minute to really understand all of the legal intricacies that are attached to this. And so I think that for families, they don't have to potentially get that into the weeds of it. But
Mhm.
really, I would just suggest doing some research online. Special Needs Alliance actually is a very educational website when it comes to special needs trusts.
And Carol, also one site I found very helpful, especially if you want to understand about the special needs trust itself. The Department of Healthcare Services, DHCS, has a
Mhm.
section on special needs and explains the legislation.
Perfect. And then do they need a referral from regional center or any other agency, or can they just reach out to you directly?
Nope. So if a family wants to learn more or get started, they just have to reach out to us. No referral is necessary. Like I said, we'll go over in depth the family's situation, what needs they anticipate for their loved one, and move forward from there.
So once the first step is taken, reaching out to you guys, what should the families expect as they start the process with your team?
So the process to set up the trust, assuming the family is 100% on board, it's essentially an enrollment fee plus paperwork. The nature of these things are I could set one up today and it not be funded for 40 years, and that's completely fine. That's the nature of the game. In that time, no fees are assessed or anything like that. It's essentially an account that is there ready to be funded when the time comes, which is sometimes we think, well, if I'm not going to fund it for 40, 30, 50 years, do I really have to do that today? And to that question, I say, one, we never know when we're going to pass away. I have had, unfortunately, people who have called me for inquiries pass away during the just education portion of it. And secondly, there is something to be said for the proactivity of it. If you set up the trust for your loved one ahead of time, that grants you certain benefits in the sense of still having a say over how the money is to be directed should the beneficiary pass away. Whereas if the beneficiary has to set up their own trust by themselves, that's subject to Medi-Cal payback when the beneficiary passes away. So it depends. So that's also a bonus of planning ahead, is still having more control over your money if the person were to pass away.
Are there any common misunderstandings or fears that come up often? And how do you help families move through them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the common concerns, which Carmen kind of touched upon, is this connotation of a trust. Oh, a trust is only for rich people. But really, the philosophy of a special needs trust is to supplement, not supplant government benefits. So it's meant to work side by side together. You don't have to be an incredibly wealthy family to do this. So I think that once the family comes over that misconception and then realizes, no, this is something that I might need if I want to leave any financial gift behind, great, let's set it up. And I think that the other common concern or hurdle, which is more of, I think this is the compassionate side of things. It's not something that you can really get past, but we're dealing with callers who are almost at the end of their journey. So they're in the panic of who's going to take care of my baby, because there are forever babies, right? Who's
Of
going to take
course.
care of my baby when I'm gone? And having to sit with them and really just offering that empathy and understanding. And I think that there's a lot to be said when you can connect with someone who truly gets it. I know personally myself, I get it. I'm a mother to a child with a disability. There's, I think, warmth in knowing that if you do hand it off to an organization like ours who specializes in the disability community, that we are going to be able to take care of your loved one. But nobody has unfortunately been able to tackle the trying to invert the natural order of mom and dad going before
Yeah.
child.
And Carol, I just wanted to, piggyback on what you said. Both of us have children with special needs. And I've had, as you have as well, clients that say, oh, no, my cousin will do it, or their sister, or my niece. But when you have a special needs person, family member, or your child that you're taking care of, no one sees the journey that you walk on. It is not easy. It is not for the faint of heart. And if you're gone and then someone takes that and they'll go, oh, I didn't realize it was so much. Oh my God, why did I say yes to this? That is what that's what people are faced with. And then they don't know how to manage, paperwork or keeping up with their benefits, or there's the accountability to handle it. Well, there's a lot of things they can and can't do for that person and monitor the money. There's so much. And a lot of people think, I'm just not really equipped for this. Or you get someone that spends up the money right away, and then that person that really needed it and needed you to take care of them, now they're left out in the cold. So having this done in advance assures that it's the way you ask for it. If you're setting it up for your family member, if you wanted, certain things to be paid for, or a certain amount of money, or a certain level of lifestyle or continuity, then we make sure that happens. But you hope that if you do this by yourself and a family member that you appoint does it, it's a risk. But first, we have lots of checks and balances to ensure that we do this, and we've done it for well over 40 years for countless families.
I know Carmen kind of went a little bit in and out there, but just to provide a little bit of background there, and a little bit more education, with special needs trusts, you can join an organization like Proxy Parent Foundation, or you can create a standalone trust, as it's called, where you as the parent would seek out an attorney who would draw up all of this paperwork for you. And in this two scenarios, with a standalone trust, you have to choose your own trustee. And that's a scenario where it could be a family member, family friend, whereas with Proxy Parent Foundation, the organization is the trustee. And that in of itself, when you are leaving that responsibility of trust management to a family member, can create conflict between beneficiary and trustee, but also just the idea of maintaining all of the services, right? So making sure that you're dispersing money correctly, keeping up with taxes, keeping up with all of the changing regulations. So it is a very big job. And so whichever route families do go, you want to make sure that if you go the private route and you are selecting a family member, friend, etc., as trustee, that they really understand that this is going to be a job. It's a financial position in a way where you're managing funds, and you have to make sure that you're following the letter of the law, because sometimes, as family members, we can make mistakes. I just had a call with someone who is a mom who's managing her daughter's SSI funds, and she accidentally, not in bad faith, made a mistake, and then whoop, now they owe back pay. And so, stuff can happen, is all that to say. And then, of course, we get, which we've previously discussed, into the intricacies of the glass child, and do we put too much responsibility on our children that are not disabled to look after their disabled siblings? And so it's a lot of considerations, and that's why this is a really individualized fit that you need to consider.
Yeah, definitely. And you both witnessed how the right plan can bring relief and stability to our families. So, Carol, without sharing personal details, is there a story or a moment that captured the impact of your work and something that stayed with you?
Yeah, I would say off the top of my head, one of the first things that comes to mind is a beneficiary that came to us. He had received a settlement, and As soon as he received the settlement, I'm not entirely sure how this person came to be in his life, but this person raised red flags and they were so the trust was set up, and this person was just making these outrageous disbursement requests. And as the trustee, as the organization, we were reviewing these and we knew it didn't sit right. But not only that, it's not for the benefit of the beneficiary. So we had to shut down all of those requests and say, we're not giving you money. Well, that person ended up leaving the beneficiary's home in a disgruntled manner. I believe she took all of his furniture, but it just goes to show that sometimes there are bad actors that especially can leech onto our vulnerable beneficiaries in this population. And having an organization that can help discern those types of requests is valuable. Another situation that comes to mind is really sort of crisis management. Even just this year alone, we've had two families that called us seeking our pay-as-you-go program. So they already have trust set up with us, but they wanted to get personal support services in the here and now because they were experiencing a crisis. Essentially, it seemed like beneficiary left his affordable housing situation, went presumably maybe started using substances again, became homeless, lost his SSI, all of his benefits, and she needed someone who could be on the ground, find him first and foremost, get him stabilized, first going to the hospital, and then helping him rebuild everything one by one. So going to go get an ID card, then let's go to the benefits office and see how we start over. I think those are all pretty valuable examples of the work that we do, especially if the parent didn't happen to live near the child, which sometimes is the case in our families. We get calls saying, well, I live here, but my kids in, the Bay Area, or they're in SoCal and I'm in NorCal. So it's just nice, I think, to have that level of oversight and discernment.
And from the leadership perspective, Carmen, what do you wish more families understood earlier in their journey when it comes through long-term planning and future care?
Long-term planning, especially when you're dealing with individuals that have special needs, is essential because there's so many moving parts. And as we mentioned earlier, you don't know when you're not going to be able to play your role. And it doesn't mean you have to pass away. Sometimes, we just can't physically or, do it anymore. So that long-term planning, while you're in your, as my grandmother would say, in the right frame of mind, you can make good, solid decisions, put all of the ducks in a row, make sure that everything is in place so that if anything does happen, it's ready. And, just being proactive, because if you're not, and if you don't have things set up, there's so many things that could happen, like, probate and all of these things because you didn't have the things in order. And so that person who is already devastated to not have their loved one, but now everything is up in the air. And if they have special needs, it's hard for them to fathom it or understand what's going on. So, having the forethought and the ability to do it in advance is going to be valuable in the long run because you won't be here to help pick up any pieces or anything that falls apart. And other people don't pick up pieces or try to glue things back together like we do. And the people who have been there from day one, the parents, the loved ones, they don't always have that same commitment. So doing it in advance is something that it just really makes things easier, especially in a time if someone does pass away, having that already done eases some of the heartache. Because if you're trying to plan and do things and figure out all these other pieces, it's overwhelming. And you could easily, mess it up because you just don't know what step to do. And so, yeah, I think just really taking the initiative and following through and get it done. And once it's done, it's done. And you can go on, about your days and weeks and months and years and not be worried about it.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, ladies. I know this is a pretty emotional and overwhelming process that you help families through. I appreciate you, Carol, sharing those experiences you've had where Proxy Foundation really came in and acted like a safeguard for the vulnerable individuals and beneficiaries. And your perspective, Carmen, in regards to the reality and how it is necessary to, as much as we don't want to have that conversation, or it's taboo in a lot of cultures to have that conversation of what happens when we pass away. And it's just a scary thought for all parents, you know? So with this topic we're discussing today being emotional and sometimes overwhelming, Carol, what guidance would you offer families who are just beginning to think about conservatorship and long term planning or support decision making?
I think that, as you said, all of these topics are overwhelming, but are inherently emotional. I don't want to think about being gone. That's not an option for my son. I have to be here until his last breath. Really, the thing that I would just advise is take the first step of contacting any reputable organization to learn more. Start the process there. I think that when you can speak to someone who can really break it down for you, but also be eye level, one on one, talk to you in layman's terms. Because if you read a legal book about this stuff, your eyes are going to glaze. I mean, mine do. And you're going to say, do I even really understand this? But being able to break it down with someone. So just take that first step, even if you don't know anything, just say, I want to learn. Let's have an info session. And a reputable organization should give you that time and really help you start there. And that's the first step, is just begin to gather that information so that you can make a plan. But I know sometimes when we think about all of the different steps leading up to this ultimate thing, like, yes, between now and actually executing the special needs trust might be 30 steps. And if you think about it like that, you might get paralysis of starting. And so just take that first step, and that really gets the ball going.
Perfect. And as we approach the end of our conversation, I want to make sure families know exactly how to reach you. So, how can families contact the Proxy Parent Foundation or learn more about your services?
So I would say start by going to our website. Our website is proxyparentfoundation.org. Review the information on there. I will also just give a plug. We are revamping our website in the new year, so keep checking it. But beyond that, the information, the general line is on there. Feel free to call in. Call me directly. I'm the person that you would speak to. So if you found me easy enough to listen to, we can connect over the phone one-on-one. And that's how we can get started.
And for all our listeners out there, I will make sure to have the website as well as any contact information provided in the basic description of the podcast. And also, are there any upcoming workshops, resources, or events families should keep an eye out for?
So just yesterday, we actually hosted a really large webinar with CalAble. We do know that that presentation will be posted on their website. Likely in the new year, they have to go through some captioning and editing and things like that. But once that is linked, we will be sharing it out with our community. So I would highly recommend that on top of visiting our website, sign up for our contact sheet so that you get those emails. And once that's out, you'd be able to watch that. That was a really valuable webinar because it's going to teach you about the CalAble savings account. So that's a great program. It's going to teach you more about special needs trust, and then it's going to go into how both accounts work together. And of course, why in one scenario you might go CalAble, and another scenario you might go trust. So it's all about how it fits your individual needs.
I just wanted to just piggyback with what Carol said. Certainly contact us and we will get back to you and answer all your questions. A lot of organizations that help with special needs, especially attorneys and so forth, they charge you for that. Carol and we're there to talk to you and answer all those questions so that you will make informed decision. We pride ourselves in being a very reputable organization, and we're there. So, we welcome you to contact us and we will help you along the way. But also know to check on our social media. We also have our contact information there. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So you're welcome to, if you're on social media, check us out there as well.
Awesome. And before we finish, I'd love to ask both of you for one final question. What is one message of hope or encouragement you want parents and caregivers to carry with them after listening today? So, Carol?
You're going to make me cry with this question, Karla.
I know.
I know. Honestly, I think the message that I would want to give parents is that by doing this, that even when you're gone, it's going to be okay if you set up the right plan for your baby.
Thank you.
Ah!
How about you, Carmen?
I would say definitely the best act of love is to let your family member know you cared enough to make sure that everything was taken care of, whether you're there or you're not. So that, the love and the support that you gave them continues. So there's no greater gift of love than you taking the time to do what's right for them because they can't do it themselves.
Thank you very much, Carmen. So, Carol and Carmen, thank you both for your insight, your guidance, and the heart you bring into your work. Conversations like this can truly change the way families move forward with more confidence, more knowledge, and more space. And to all our listeners, thank you for joining us. If you'd like additional information about this episode or other Resource Hub interviews, you can visit us at www.empathyforautismcalifornia.com. We'll see you next time on Voices Beyond the Spectrum. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining us for this Resource Hub edition of Voices Beyond the Spectrum featuring Parent Proxy Foundation, an organization that supports individuals with disabilities and their families through special needs trust and personal support services. A special thank you to Carol Larkin and Carmen Bowen from the Proxy Parent Foundation for sharing their time, knowledge, and valuable information with our families and listeners. We would also like to thank Brad Kaloof for the music production with piano performed by Brad Kaloof and Sophia Chinen. Voices Beyond the Spectrum is brought to you by Empathy for Autism California, Inc., a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing free bilingual resources, education, trainings, advocacy, information, and community support for families navigating autism and other developmental disabilities. You can listen to the podcast on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Please support our work by subscribing, following, and sharing our episodes and helping each of us reach more families. Thank you for listening. Remember, every story matters, every family deserves support, and every voice deserves to be heard. With empathy, always.